FEMA has presented us with many unanswered questions and very little direction, and they are moving at a snail's pace for answers. Stop FEMA Now intends to provide a fact-based argument as to how and why we can rebuild stronger and more resilient with a more realistic approach. In this past week, both myself, Mr. George Cassimos, our founder, were in communication with the governor's office. Mr. Cassimos and I and other members that are here today both testified at the quasi-hearing in Long Branch on Thursday night. We have also been in touch with assemblymen, mayors, local senators, FEMA, Rutgers and Stockton scientists and professors, and the council members that have come to our meeting today. Just know we are ruffling feathers and we are getting attention. I welcome our township councilmen to our meeting and thank them for coming. Know that they are doing everything that they can to represent and support us. I'd now like to introduce our founder, Mr. George Cassimos.
Now then, I don't want to move.
That's Dr. Quinn. She's very humble. We just met a week and a half ago. She's awesome. She's working hard. She's doing wonderful things for us. First of all, I just want to get some real quick things out of the way. If anybody has any mental health issues, Donna Mazza from New Jersey Hope and Healing Command Center from Barnabas Health Institute Prevention's here. I believe they're right there. You want to say a few words?
Thank you. I just want to thank you for letting us come here. I'm just going to take about 30 seconds of your time. We had a chance to work the room a little bit and talk to all of you, and many of you received a little pamphlet on your way in.
Can you talk louder? Because we all can't hear.
Sure, I'll try. We're here just to offer you emotional support, okay? Many people are experiencing stresses, emotional crises, things they've never experienced before. You may not know how to deal with it. Maybe you're fine. Maybe your neighbor isn't doing too well. Maybe next week you will be doing too well. So I'll ask you to hold on to this number, share this number, call this number if you're having any kind of difficulty, because there's a wealth of information out there. There's a wealth of free services out there, and it's really all just to help you to see a brighter tomorrow. So if you haven't gotten one of these already, please look for us. There's a few of us with these bright yellow vests on. We've also been handing out these stress balls if anyone should need one. It has our telephone number in there as well. Okay, please make sure you hold on to the stress balls. Don't let them lose. So thank you very much. We'll be here, and if you need us, please hit us up. Okay, thank you.
I want to say thank you to everybody who's involved in this EMS rescue station, who've been so kind and generous to give us their space. I want to thank personally Jane Gogan.
Excuse me, is there any way that we could move?
Absolutely, come on in. Come closer, please. Don't be shy. Hey, come in. Everybody, come in. Come in. There's going to be more people coming. Don't be shy.
I'll sit on
Come
the
around here. Hey, everybody can come around here. No problem. The Gogan family. The husband who helped, I assume, one of the key benefactors of this beautiful building and first aid squad, and Jane and her family, and everybody from the EMS station that is allowing us to use this. I want to thank you. I appreciate it, and I think we appreciate it. I want to thank the people who came to the DEP meeting last night. It was a long ride. Some people came from Atlantic City. Some people came down from Hoboken. It was very important to get the word out. I can't thank everybody, but Mr. and Mrs. James Falconer, Brian McAlinden, Margaret Quinn, Kathy Sarah, Nancy Castronova, who called me, never met her. She called me 10 times endlessly. She made me get there. Doris Bader Sikora and several other members too that went there. We need support like that. Get the word out. Let's get a reasonable word out. Let's get a dialogue with our senators and our councilmen and our governor and tell them what our problems are. They will listen. I also want to thank all the new people that are in our advisory members, and they've been doing a great job, and this is what we've gotten so far, and I want to thank all of them. If anybody wants to volunteer, We'd love to have you. I don't care if you want to help us put out chairs, if you have a PhD, if you're an attorney, if you're an engineer, or you just want to help, please see Kenny. Kenny, raise your hand, please. And Kenny, he'll help you out, and if you can help us out. I want to get the word out to Commissioner Bob Martin from the DEP. I appreciate you having the meeting for us in Long Branch, but it is inconvenient for people who have been displaced. You need to have more meetings all across the state, especially where people have been displaced, such as this area, and Hoboken, and Manahawkin, and everywhere else in Jersey. A lot of people ask me, how do I join? You're in, guys. You're in. All right, you join. I am not Stop FEMA Now. You are Stop FEMA Now. Okay? When you talk to somebody, Stop FEMA Now. Nobody's going to listen to George. Nobody's going to listen to Joyce. Nobody's going to listen to Mr. Wittman. They're going to listen to Stop FEMA Now, because we are Stop FEMA Now. Okay? Everybody's in.
How about a petition for all of us to sign?
Absolutely.
That's what you gotta start.
Absolutely. And we'll do that.
Put them on a committee.
Absolutely.
I got enough information for the committee.
Absolutely. Here's things that we can do. We have to get the word out. When did you find out about raising your home or your flood levels of your home? Have I ever met you before? When did you find out? A few weeks ago. Did you know FEMA's been doing this for 5 to 7 years? Does anybody know this? No. Do you know there's your neighbors next door, especially the elderly neighbors that have been living here and want to hand down their house to their family and they don't know what to do? Get the word out. Talk to them. The number one vehicle that is getting the politicians to talk to us, the politicians are calling us. We're not calling them anymore. They are going to call us. You know why? Because you like us on Facebook. Facebook, Stop FEMA Now. Like us. Did anybody not hear that? Like us. Get the word out. Talk to your neighbors and talk to your friends.
That's great.
To the senior citizens, you gotta get on Facebook. Facebook, Facebook, Facebook. You can tell me what you had for dinner last night. You can tell me you like dogs. But you can like us on Facebook. Stop FEMA Now.
Like to stop.
The reason I want us on Facebook is because I don't want the politicians to say something to us at one point and then turn around and do something different. I want them to post it on Facebook so everybody can hear it. Don't you think that's fair? You're going to make a deal? Okay? Let's put it out in the open. Okay? FEMA wants to do something and change it, put it on Facebook. That's what I want. We have several associations. I believe Berkeley, you're from the Berkeley Association. We have an Ortley Association. Kathleen, which association is that? Anybody else who lives in a property that is in an association, is on a board of association, contact us. Contact Kenny. Let him know. Talk to your board. Please become an affiliate of Stop FEMA Now. You have, how many people are in your association?
About 500.
500. How many people live in your whole association?
We got 1,000 in there.
1,000. I want 1,000 people to like Stop FEMA Now. That's what I want, and that's what your job is to do. Anybody else who lives in these associations, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. Here's the things we're trying to get accomplished. We need official answers. We need the answer. We don't need it to get changed and changed again and hear rumors. We need official answers from our local officials, from our state officials, but specifically from FEMA.
How about the governor? Why doesn't everybody call and inundate the governor?
I think the governor hears us. I think the governor has been handcuffed by FEMA. FEMA said to the governor, here's $30 billion, $40 billion, whatever they gave him. The governor can only do so much with one hand behind his back. We're going to help untie his hands.
Where's these grants? Where's these grants?
We're going to
That's what I
talk
wanna know.
about it.
Where's the grants? Yeah.
We want answers as to what is going on with the maps. They're riddled with errors. We don't need them fixed in August or even in May. We want them fixed now. We cannot rebuild.
We need solutions, not answers now.
Thank
They've
you.
been giving us answers, but it's the wrong answer.
Right. Right.
We need common sense rules on doing things. If you're on a slab, it's going to be hard to raise that house. We need people to come and give us answers. Lower the insurance premiums. How do you expect a senior to spend $30,000 a year in flood insurance?
Or anybody.
Anybody.
Or anybody. Or anybody.
They're gonna put the banks out of business. Put the banks out of business. They're the ones who should be fighting for us.
Did anybody know that FEMA's been working on this? Not only in New Jersey, not only in New York, but across the nation. Florida, the Carolinas, Texas, California. If you have family in anywhere, call them up. They're probably in the flood zone. If they weren't, they probably are now. What about the people who have to raise our house 4 feet? The people about 3 blocks inland who weren't in the flood zone, they don't know it. They're going to get this from FEMA, flood insurance. They don't even know it. They'll be here. They'll be here when they get the bill. And so will all the people around the country. We want to get the politicians to hear our voices. I hear your voice, sir. I hear you. And we're going to make them hear you, sir. We need to get the funds, the grants, and everything out quickly. Cut the red tape. I'll give you a little update where we are now. I've written letters. I've emailed. I've called since early January. My neighbor Jack. Where's Jack? Jack Thompson gives me a letter early January. He says, George, he goes, you're going to have to raise your house. I go, what are you talking about? I got to raise my house. He goes, right here. Says it right here. I said, what are you talking about? I go down to Toms River City Hall and I said, yeah. And I look, and flood insurance for me is going to be about 15 grand a year. That's not a price increase. That's extortion.
Right.
It's extortion. Why has FEMA not sent these notices out to everybody? It's my understanding 15 to 20% of Americans, not New Jerseyans, not New Yorkers, Americans are in the same situation. They don't even know it. What's the secret, FEMA? We are in communication with Governor Christie's office. They are talking to us. They are coming to us, and I appreciate that. And hopefully we can work together with the solution. State Senator Van Drew's office stated, and I quote, they are very supportive and sympathetic to our cause and will do whatever he can do to help. We are not here to bash our politicians. We are here to support our politicians, but we need action now. I personally believe Governor Christie is on our side. I believe FEMA has handcuffed him. And I believe we need to just let Governor Christie know how we feel. In a calm way.
I have a question for Governor Christie then. I have a question. All I've been reading about is how they're rebuilding the boardwalks.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
wrong?
Yeah, all right, there you go, yeah.
Does
Exactly.
Governor Christie realize nobody lives on the boardwalk?
Right,
There's
exactly.
on rebuilding communities, not boardwalks.
Yeah, how about it?
I appreciate it. We have 1 hour. And I appreciate your frustration. I appreciate it because I'm frustrated too. But let's get our word out. I understand you. And I will talk to you as long as you want. And I'll have a beer or a coffee with you, whatever you want. Because I feel you. I feel you. And I'll take you.
It's an election year.
We need to stop FEMA now. Not like in New Orleans. In 7 years, that place is still a mess down there. I pity the poor people in New Orleans, the way FEMA has treated them. We're not waiting 7 years. I'll tell you right now. We are not
Not the
waiting 7 years.
$3,500 a year that I paid each month.
We need to let people know this is not a Sandy issue. The hurricane knocked us down. We'll get back up. FEMA's trying to knock us out. We're not letting that happen. This is not about the Jersey Shore, or Hoboken, or LBI, or Atlantic City, or even Staten Island and Brooklyn. And reach out to those folks. I know a lot of people are from Brooklyn, and a lot of people here are from Staten Island. We're all in it together. But this is a national issue. I want to bring George Wittman over. He's our council president. But before I bring him over, I want to introduce Faith Ligori, who's been a big supporter from day one, and she has a few comments for us. Please come on over, Faith.
First of all, I'm Faith Ligori, and for those of you who commented on a video that Sandy Levine did, okay, I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter out of my frustration from Sandy, and it was posted. And a woman named Sandra Levine asked me to read the letter in my Sandy's damaged home. I did that, and on Facebook, it's titled "Homeless in Seaside Park."
Yeah, that was on.
Every comment I read brought tears to my eyes, and will bring tears to my eyes now, because there were so many people who are going through the same frustrations that I was. Before I came here today, I sat down and took a look at all the brochures that FEMA has given me. I'm not going to read all of them, but I've read the increased cost of compliance, answers to questions on NFP, disaster resource guide, myths and facts about the NFIP program, FEMA mold and remediation, help after a disaster, what you need to know about federal disaster assistance, NIFP, the top 10 facts for consumers. The list goes on. I have 17 pages, brochures, stacks of things at home. My favorite is FEMA in a Pocket. Anybody get this one? All I know is I've read all of these, and not one of them gives me a doable answer. Not one of them provides help for me, my friends, my neighbors, and all the people in this room. So I think George is right. We need to come together. We need to vote. We need to Stop FEMA Now. Every one of your comments are important to us. Our governor needs to hear us. I know he understands, and he has said that he doesn't want the Jersey Shore to just be for rich people. Most of us in this room are hardworking, middle-class people. And our federal government needs to hear our concerns and needs to hear our voices. I'd like to read you a quote, and this is from the FEMA representatives bracing for consumer backlash when NFIP actuarial rates are phased in. And I quote, "We are expecting acute consternation," said an unidentified aide to David Miller, FEMA Associate Administrator for the Federal Insurance Mitigation. Acute consternation, my sister's butt. He's going to hear more than acute consternation. Because you know what? He will bankrupt all of us with these regulations. So I ask you and I beg you to please vote on Stop FEMA Now. When we get the petition up, we need you to sign it. And if we need to take a bus to Washington, I want you there. Thank you.
help but when I first heard her story, I couldn't help but call her. I tracked her down like she owed me money. She's wonderful. She's a wonderful lady. I've had conversations with several politicians, and for weeks, they wanted questions, give me questions, what are you going to ask me? I can only ask certain questions, and we went back and forth, and I said, you know what, I don't want to do it. If somebody's going to come up here, we're going to ask them the questions. They're not going to tell us what they want to tell us. We're going to ask them the questions. We're going to ask it in a nice way, and we're going to have a conversation. And the first person who came is Mr. George Wittman. Please come out here, Mr. Wittman. He's the Council President for Tom Gilbert. Please give a hand. I also, before we start, I also want to extend our thanks to Mr. Mohill. He's a councilman. John Stevastakis, he's here. And Bob Shukalian. Now, they all have been affected by Sandy. Mr. Mohill had his mother affected by Sandy, okay? So understand that we are in the same boat. Also understand, before I ask him any questions, he's got to be here to help. He didn't make these rules. FEMA made these rules, okay? FEMA is making a majority of these issues. Let's try and get some answers and have a conversation with Mr. Wittman, okay? I have some questions, and then at the end, we'll try and get a few more questions because I'm sure I don't have everything for everybody. Is that okay? Yeah. What's the latest on the FEMA flood maps?
Well, to back up, FEMA put out these maps on December 12th. The township engineer, Bob Shinkelian, who's here today, immediately reviewed the maps. Within a week, had a response out to FEMA, basically questioning the elevations and the designation of the V zone. Because when you look at the data to support it, and we asked for the modeling, how did you mathematically model? I'm an engineer as well as Jeff Carr in the Township Council. So we asked for the mathematical modeling, or Bob did, and he said, well, we haven't performed that. It's called a WAFIS model. So it immediately our antenna went up to say, well, wait a minute, how did you come up with these values if the maps, if you didn't use the wave action model to calculate whether you're in a V zone or not? The second thing that was sort of suspicious was that the Sandy elevations are not mapped out on the flood maps, and the Sandy elevations are actually a 200-year storm from what we can tell. And you can get some argument whether it's a 200-year or 300-year storm. So in other words, they're supposed to map it as a 100-year storm, which is, basically a 1% event. They mapped it as a 0.5% event or a 200-year storm. So as a result, the numbers are actually higher than the Sandy number. So if you look at my neighborhood, and I'll just take my street, the water, I know for a fact, came up 8.5 feet in my garage, give or take an inch. And the elevation is now 9. Well, the Sandy elevation is a 200-year event. So it stands to reason if that's a 200-year event, why am I at 9? I should be somewhat lower than 8.5 if it's a 200-year event. The other thing that you find is that all these areas in V zones, I toured most of the town after the storm, and I couldn't find that wave action damage on any of the houses on Green Island or Silver Bay. I found one house on Ortley where the bulkhead collapsed and it washed away the foundation, but it really wasn't related to wave action. It was more related to the bulkhead, which needed to be replaced, and it wasn't in time. But other than that, we couldn't really determine that. So when we looked at these maps, we protested, we asked to go to meet with FEMA. So we had a meeting, I guess, in February. I might have the timeline off a little bit. And myself, Jeff Carr, the township administrator, the mayor, Bob Shinkelian, and the assistant township engineer, Wendy Burkhead, all went up to FEMA. We had a meeting with them. We talked to them about it. We said, look, we don't think these are accurate. They acknowledged that the maps are conservative and that the V zones would probably shrink and the elevations would go down. Well, that's small comfort to our residents, because now everyone is unsure what to do. So we elected not to adopt the maps, and that was the township position. So we said, we're not going to adopt them. So then what happened is the governor's order back in, I guess it was about a month ago, essentially was an executive order, overrode the township, anything that we had in terms of a decision, and we were forced to adopt the maps. And so then what happened is we have folks coming to us saying, my insurance company is not going to give me the ICC coverage because you still have the old maps, and we need to have the new elevation. So we have an ordinance in place right now going for a second reading to adopt the maps. and now we're questioning whether we should do it or not, because if the governor's order, which I understand expires at the end of March 21st, if we adopt that ordinance and then it expires, then we're doing something that maybe we shouldn't be doing. So I'm not sure where we're gonna go with that, but that's where my understanding. Now, I heard from someone else that they're gonna be extended or not. I don't know that, but if they are gonna be extended, then we'll adopt the ordinance. If not, then I think we'll talk to the council and see if we can hold off on that and see what happens. But that's essentially where we are.
Very good. In some of the technical stuff, to be honest, I think we can all agree that the maps are riddled with errors. ABFE, 100-year, 500-year, those are questions for the engineers to fight with FEMA. I have 100 questions, so
Okay.
if we can just.
I'll be short, I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all right. He is a politician after all, right? How responsive do you feel FEMA is?
Well, I think when you call them, they're, you know, from our standpoint, if we call them, they're pretty responsive. From what I've heard from the residents, they're not really happy with their response. And the problem is, if you call one person, you get a different answer each time you call them. At least that's been what the experience of the residents.
Is there a main office for FEMA in New Jersey, other than a satellite for people to go to?
Yes.
and talk?
It's in Lincroft, New Jersey, at the
In
old.
Middletown, New Jersey, Asbury
Right.
Park Press, put this address on. I sent them pictures of my home, letters, etc. It was returned to me.
Well, I don't know what address you have, sir, but I was at their office in Lincroft, New Jersey, and it's the old
This is
AT&T building.
Middletown,
Okay.
in a shopping mall.
It's not in a shopping mall.
Okay.
It's the AT&T building.
I want
So
that.
when you see the building, it's massive.
Do you feel FEMA has been giving the township contradictory information?
I think some of the information is contradictory, yes.
How do we appeal the flood maps?
Okay, well, what we tried to appeal them, and what they said, what the FEMA rule is right now is that if it's an interim map, and Bob, help me out if I'm wrong here. Bob, why don't you come up here? So that he can, if I say anything wrong, Bob is the engineer, so I have record, so I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. But my understanding is interim flood maps cannot be appealed, according to FEMA. So what they're saying is, because they're interim maps, you have to wait for the final map to come out, which will not be until August, and then you can appeal that. Is that correct? Correct. Okay, thanks.
What about grandfathering?
Okay, we were at Jeff Carr and I attended a seminar in Long Beach Township. They had the expert from FEMA at the meeting. We asked that question about grandfathering. A gentleman said, yes, there's grandfathering, and then about 10 people in the audience from FEMA and from the other townships said, no, there's no grandfather. So there's no under this new Waters Big Act, there's no grandfathering. So if your house is below the established flood elevation, or the new elevation has to be raised up if it had more than 50% damage.
What about doing something for 20 or 30% of our seniors that are living down here?
Well, again, there's the way it works is the FEMA funds are given to the state, and then the state allocates those funds based on block grants and hazard mitigation programs.
No, specifically for seniors, what programs for seniors and for the disabled and for veterans that fought for our country?
Is there any distinction?
I know they're not coming from Tom's River. I know Tom's River isn't doing it. What is FEMA doing specifically for those people?
I don't believe there's any program
What
to
is
address that.
FEMA going to expect a senior citizen to do when they have to raise their house 6 feet?
I can't answer that.
I know you can't. And I'm sorry, I'm asking a rhetorical question.
Well,
That's my
you're asking
question.
if does FEMA have a program? I'm not aware of it.
I know. Tell us a little bit about, and I know this isn't their expertise, but they have a general idea, just about the grants, like the mitigation grants. What's the latest and greatest? How long? How much? What's in there? Who distributes it? Who's going to get it?
Okay, well, right now, we know that there's going to be a hazard mitigation program. You can sign up on a website. In terms of how much money is going to be available, we haven't been, and what the criteria is, it hasn't been established yet from the governor's office as far as I can find.
Which
Is
is
there anything-
totally insane, because everybody's sitting here waiting for grants, and nobody knows what the criteria is.
So what you're
Right.
saying is you want to rebuild, but unless we get money, we can't
Right,
rebuild.
and then if I go for the mitigation grant, then what if my house is 50% and I don't get the grant?
Right.
Then what?
And what if you raise and they don't change the level, or what if you spend $150,000 to go to A, to the B zone, and then they flip you back to the A zone, you just spent the $100,000
Right,
that you didn't have
exactly.
anyway?
Exactly.
I understand.
So at this point, I can't speak to it because the criteria hasn't been established and the amounts haven't been established.
The community block grant.
Same
Same
answer.
thing.
Excuse me,
It hasn't been established.
the deadline's this week, right?
March 15th, I thought it was the
Are
22nd.
different towns working together?
Wait, one second, he's got a question. What is that deadline he's talking about?
There's a deadline where you have to sign up for the hazard mitigation program. It's March 22nd. That's what I believe.
How can there be a
Wait,
deadline if
wait.
there's no policy or procedure or guidelines?
That's it. Wait, hold on, we're not gonna scream, I like your question. Please say it loudly and clearly so we can all hear it, just him.
How can there be any kind of deadline about getting this money if there's no established procedures on who's in, who's out, what you should get, who's
Yeah, it's
applying,
crazy.
Well,
what the flood zones are?
How long is it gonna take to get the money? You can't rebuild until you get the money. If you happen to have money and you rebuild, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, ICC money, you don't get it. If you just had the money, you laid it out, God bless you, and you raise it, and you do the ICC money, I believe you don't get it. Is that correct? Same thing. Is that the same thing with the mitigation grant?
We don't have, we were told that on ICC.
We don't know.
Told that on
We
ICC.
don't know.
Crazy.
We think that's something they
Yeah.
should know.
Why would you raise it when you don't know what the flood level is?
Okay.
Yes, they don't even know the answer.
It's crazy.
Hold
How
on.
do we raise
Hold-
when we have to be on pilings and our lots are so small, there's nowhere to move our house? The raising companies come out and look and say, I can't even give you a number because you have to have pilings, you're over 50%. See ya.
I can explain that to you if you want an answer. The township has a seminar next week with house elevation companies, one's from Louisiana. We have a structural engineer, and we also have a company, Danborough Company, that does helical piles. And they've come up with it, they recognize the problem. So for my house, I'm in the same boat as you. I have to raise up and put it on pilings if I stay in the V zone. So what they do is they elevate the house, they drill these steel piles into the ground, it looks like a big corkscrew. And then as they're drilling it into the ground, they put a cement collar down, and they go about 15 feet, and you have basically a reinforced concrete column
Hold
underneath
on
the
one
house.
second.
Conservative will accept that.
Wait, hold
Yes.
on. But the issue is that it costs significantly more
It's
than
like
putting
I
piles.
didn't say that it was
Yeah,
cheaper,
yeah,
I just
no,
said
no,
no.
It's like $1,200.
And let me explain, does everybody know the difference in construction cost and method between an A zone and a V zone? No, all right, I'm gonna give you the short version and correct me, okay? I have 100 questions. If you're in A zone, all you gotta do is lift up your house, fill it up with cinder block, reconnect your services, you're good to go. Extend your stairs, you're good to go. If you're in a V zone, you gotta lift up your house and put in helicals. They're $1,400 a piece, and then you gotta put concrete on top of it. You gotta rip out most of your foundation. You have to move your house or put helicals in. Your choice. It's about, for an average house, I'm gonna say 50,000 for A zone and about 150,000 for B zone. Who's gonna pay for you when they're redoing your house, whether it's an A zone or a B zone, to live? Who's paying for you to live now? Who's gonna pay for you after you move in and then you gotta raise your house?
I don't know, maybe the governor will pay for everybody,
Oh,
maybe,
wait.
maybe, how about the governor?
No,
Let's
no,
look at the governor.
Excuse
I mean, it's
me, I
ridiculous.
appreciate your passion and I understand your frustration, but we're not gonna scream and we're not gonna blame anyone until we find out whose fault it is. The governor is not FEMA. The governor did not make these
Well, the
rules.
governor should find the answers.
Well, the
out
governor,
for us
I'm
then.
sure, is working on it. I'm sure the governor's working, and I am frustrated, just like you.
No, I don't think so. I had water in front of my house today, so I'm really frustrated.
The governor keeps,
Well,
the governor along with
what they're doing to
FEMA
clean the sewers.
keeps
How about that?
saying that they're gonna give us
Actually, go dredge the
give
bank,
us
dredge the
this
bank.
ICC money.
They
Give
can do
us.
anything they want.
They're not giving us
The
anything
sand
because
is
a lot of
loaded through
people
the
in
sewer
here
system. They can't
probably
drain
don't
the bank.
realize
I talked to the
that
guy for the sewer
ICC
company who
money
was out the
is
other day.
in
The guy's
your
house
flood
was
insurance
flooded. He said they don't have a
policy. So
clue
when
how
they
they're
say
gonna get
give,
the
they're not
sewer
giving you
source.
anything. It's in your policy.
Well,
All right.
I can answer that. What basically,
Wait, hold on.
basically the way it works is, if you want to understand how it works, if you have a flood insurance policy issued, it's up to $250,000. If your damage is $220,000, you can qualify, and you had $250,000 in damage, you're entitled to get another 30,000, either to demolish your house and build a new one, raise it, a combination of things, and the gentleman is right, it's part of your flood insurance if you have it. What we're talking about with hazard mitigation and block grants are separate, and that's what I want to clarify that. That's what the governor is talking about when he's talking about these funds that are going to be available. It has nothing to do with the ICC grants.
In some townships.
Wait, hold on 1 second, and I appreciate it, Sam. Sam is an advisory member, but we cannot have people screaming out. And I understand we have frustration, and please, let me get through my questions. If we have time, we're gonna get through more questions, okay? I understand it's a personal issue with some people, but I wanna try and get as many questions for everybody involved that had written to me on Facebook, okay? I'm sorry. How many homes were damaged in Toms River? Approximately.
I'll ask Bob to answer.
The flood fringe actually encompassed about 15,000 homes.
Fantastic.
We're so far.
15,000 homes. That's all I needed to know. How many homes have been raised to this date, 4 months later?
I can answer that. There's approximately 100 permits issued. 22 of them are related to either raising the home or or getting ready to raise the home. But in terms of the 100, the rest of them were demolition, so we're not sure what they're going to do.
How many have been raised in 4 months?
A handful, less than 10 that I'm.
Less than 10. 4 months, less than 10.
Wow.
15,000 in Toms River alone.
Wow.
How many homes approximately need to be raised in just Toms River? About.
I just want to clarify, the flood fringe encompassed about 15,000. We estimate about 10,000 of them will be probably damaged of some.
10,000 need to be raised. Approximately 10,000 homes in Toms River alone need to be raised.
And of the 1,500 that have applied so far to the substantial damage process, we're seeing about 2/3 of them end up being classified as damaged. So if you put that to the 15,000, it should end up about 10,000.
So 10,000 is the answer.
We're going to get them at the end, and I promise we'll get some questions at the end. What's going on with dredging the lagoons and the bays? My street got flooded.
Thank you.
My street got flooded too. I got a truck and I had to drive people in and out today. I understand that.
So basically, they've issued a contract to dredge the bay, and they're starting with the bay. They're going to but in order to dredge the bay, first you have to remove the debris. So they have a debris contract in there to pull in the boats and the houses and all the other debris that's at the bottom of the bay out first. Once they do that, then they're going to go into the lagoons and to the other back bay areas, pull out the debris that's, I had a dock floating in my lagoon, now it's not there. It didn't just disappear, it sunk into the lagoon. And so they have to go and do that mapping. So they've mapped where the debris is, they're going to be pulling it out, and then once they get all the debris out, or the majority of it out, then they're going to go in and start with the channels and then work their way into the lagoon.
I was told they weren't going to start dredging until August. That it would
No,
take that long to get everything out of the bay.
We were told that by the DEP and the DOT in a meeting at the county about a month and a half ago. They said they would be done, about 75% done by June. My understanding now is the process they're doing now is they're using side scan sonar to map out the debris. Once that's complete, we'll start to see probably more barges and cranes, but they need to locate it all first. And that's what I'm told is happening as we speak.
One question related to that. What are they doing to get the sand? What are they doing to get the sand out of the storm drains so that the water can go back into the bay instead of on our properties?
Yeah, there you go.
In the case of the sand in Ortley Beach, and that's where particularly.
That's where I'm talking.
We have we have the Department of Public Works, and we have the MUA for the sanitary sewers. Because what happened is as they got undermined, the pipe broke and sand got in them, and they're cleaning them out. And they're working street by street to do that.
How are they cleaning them out?
We're pipes that are clogged with sand that we can physically vacuum out with a jet truck. We're doing a lot of those pipes may be beyond repair. We are about 2 to 3 weeks away from to start issuing contracts to either jet vac with larger equipment and bigger trucks than what we have, or physically rip out and replace them, and that is FEMA reimbursable. We're working very closely with FEMA to try to make sure that everything we do can be paid by FEMA. We're told 75-25. We're hoping for 90-10.
Explain to me why the barrier islands are not a barrier. Why is that not a simple solution to a majority of the problem?
I guess if you're asking, what can you do?
Who's responsible for the barrier islands being a barrier. This is common sense.
Corps of Engineers.
Okay, so here's the situation. We have a need for a dune along the beach. And what happens is, the Corps of Engineers is willing to build a dune 25 foot high, which is probably up to the ceiling, and 75 foot wide, from Manasquan Inlet to Long Beach Island. And if they were to build that dune, let's assume they could do it tomorrow, you would have not seen the flooding in any of the areas. The professor that
I let you talk, sir, and you gotta respect everybody else, and you gotta respect everybody else.
A professor from Stevens Institute that had a seminar on this estimates that the elevation in the bay increased by approximately 4 feet because of the breach at the Manasquan Bridge, or Manaloking Bridge, excuse me, Manaloking Bridge. And as a result, the water level in the bay pushed up between 3 and 4 feet. So if they build this dune, they would actually be able to lower the flood elevations, the base flood elevations throughout Tom's River and all the other communities. The problem is that you have beachfront homeowners that are refusing to grant the town
They
easements.
shouldn't have a vote.
Wait, hold on. Governor Christie, I heard him say that he is going to go after those homeowners. Okay? He's got to do that, and I'm sure he's going to do that. Okay? That's it. We're done. You put up the barriers, we're going home. We're rebuilding. It's simple. Hold on.
It's not a panacea. You're still going to have flood elevations. And
I got a bridge to sell you if you're going to believe that.
Hold on. If we raise our home, I have a question. If we raise our home to the 10 foot, they require 10 foot in my neighborhood. If we go 10 foot, Tom's River freeboarding us, we go to 11 foot, right? If we go to 11 foot, we are above and beyond what FEMA expects us to have to be in a flood zone, correct?
Well, if you're a V10,
and we go to 11 or 12.
well, it depends. It depends on the requirement for the V zone is the lowest horizontal member has to be at that flood elevation. So if you're on pilings, the top of the piling has to be 10 feet. And then you typically have a girder, which is another 12 inches to 18 inches, and then a floor. So you're literally about 2 feet above where the flood is.
If we're at that number, FEMA's basically saying you're not going to flood in the next 100 years. Is that correct?
That's what they're saying.
Okay, if I do that, is FEMA still going to charge me flood insurance?
They'll still charge you.
So what?
Yes.
If I'm not going to get flooded, why are you charging me flood insurance?
Right.
You hear this? 3,500. I don't know what the number is, but that's what I've heard. It's a good racket. I'd like to be in the flood insurance business.
Well, what they're saying is for a 100-year storm, you would not flood. What they're saying is if it's more than a 100-year storm, like Sandy.
If a tsunami hits us, we got more to worry about than a 100-year storm. Okay.
It's almost like we're being
What
punished.
about, have the
It's like we're
officials,
being
Tom's
punished.
River State, anybody talk about having a moratorium until these maps and flood insurance issues are straightened out?
No.
Why not?
Okay? He doesn't have that answer. He's not the one pushing that answer. He's given us an answer, we'll take it. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry.
What percentage of property values have been lost in Tom's River because of Sandy? In your opinion?
Well, no, it's not an opinion. It's a tax assessor's number. It's about 20%.
Okay, thank you.
What?
Wait, you're interrupting. You're interrupting. You will be the first person that can answer the next question at the end. What percentage of value have homes lost due to FEMA?
I don't have the answer to that because
I'm going to give you a typical scenario. Somebody was at a 6-foot BFE. I have the numbers here so you can answer my question. You can look at the map and give me a ballpark. Somebody's at the previous old flood map. They were paying $1,000 a year, 6-foot BFE. They go to a 10-foot BFE. They don't have the money, the funds, or anything to raise their home. And they stay at a 6-foot BFE. And they're 4 feet below. And you can look at this chart because I'm sure you haven't memorized it yet. But I'm sure we're all going to memorize it before it's done. If I don't raise my home, if that home was at the current BFE before FEMA did us the favor and released these new flood maps, it was $1,000 a year for full coverage. Now that they raised it and it's at 10 foot, do you know what are they going to be paying approximately? If they're
35,000.
If they're,
I mean, 3,500.
No, I think it says 3,000. I think the sheet says 3,000.
no. If you're, that would be 4 feet, so it would be a number between here and here. This is 10 foot, you'd be paying 3,500. If you raise, according to this chart, okay, if you raise your home to the 10 foot, and you're above, in my understanding, the 100-year plan, you're gonna pay 3,500 bucks. You did your research, sir. We're gonna get them a prize, right? We have a bonus prize.
Another stress ball.
If you're 2 feet below that new BFE, you're gonna be paying $7,000. And it goes from 2 feet below to 6 feet below, and that's where this scenario is going at. It would be about $15,000 if you cannot raise your home. I'm not talking about the people that are on the slide.
Bad, but not.
I'm talking about people that were at the level
I missed
a year ago.
I had to
What if
go
you don't
to
buy
bring it out.
insurance?
What, wait, hold on. What I'm trying to get at is, if people cannot raise their house, and I'm talking about houses that are high, and they can't raise their house, and they have to get paid $15,000 a year, how much value, in your opinion, do you think that house will lose?
Well, it's gonna lose a considerable amount of value, so I don't have the exact number,
A
but,
ballpark.
well, I would think it's the cost, if you had a house that was.
I just need a number. He's an engineer and he gets.
No,
a number.
it's basically the cost of what it would be to raise it. So whatever that value is, if it's $100,000, it costs $50,000 to raise it. It would be worth whatever. Somebody comes in to buy your house, and they have to, and you're selling it for the value of the house is $100,000 plus the land, and they have to spend $50,000 to raise it. I'm going to offer you $50,000 for the house because I have to spend $50,000 to raise it. So you're going to lose whatever the cost of the elevation is.
So if you have to raise to a V zone, you've lost $150,000 about.
No, it's about 100.
Oh, about 100, just 100. Okay.
I didn't say it was a
No,
small amount.
look, he's giving us a number, and I am not mocking him. Okay, but this is 20% for Sandy and 100 for FEMA.
It's unbelievable.
FEMA's supposed to help us. Since we lost value, since we agree we've lost value, and Tom's River, and I know all the towns, this is not a Tom's River meeting, this is an everybody, New Jersey, New York, everybody meeting. Since Tom's River was actually nice enough, they gave us a tax break. I don't know if anybody signed up for a 1-year tax break. I did. We did.
I did.
Explain to us exactly what that was.
Okay, if your house was substantial, if your house had damage and you couldn't live in the house, say for a period of time, or you're not back in your house for a period of 6 months, it's assumed that you can get a tax break for the period that you're not able to occupy your house.
How big of a tax break?
Well, it would be if you couldn't live in your house and your house was assessed if you were paying $4,000 for just a house,
Yes.
and you couldn't live in it for 6 months,
Yes.
then it'd be half of the value.
So when does that kick in? When I get my CO?
It kicks in. Well, it kick in for basically when you get your.
When I get my
back in.
CO.
When you
So
move
if
back
I don't
in.
get my CO for a couple of years, it's not going to kick in?
You're not- we're not
Is
gonna-
it just a 1-year exemption, or is it?
No, it's when you move back in. You know, if people are living in the house.
I understand.
It's not
I
gonna be,
understand.
it's not gonna be forever.
So, hold, please,
They can send you a letter, but you're not paying your taxes.
You can, well, you can't apply for that one. By state law, it had to be filed by mid-January. We have it all over our website. But you can appeal your taxes up to May 1st.
Hold on, that's where I'm going.
It's May 1st.
That's where I'm going, hold on.
And so, typically you get a real estate appraiser.
No, I'm sorry to cut you off. There is a process. You gotta get a realtor, you gotta get an appraiser, you gotta go through your garbage bags to go find all your paperwork, you gotta pay an attorney to file it, or you better know what you're doing to go file a tax appeal. 10 to 15,000 people alone in New Jersey lost between 20 and 40% of value, right here. We just explained it, correct?
Yep.
You cannot, not you, because I know you don't control this, the governor, the states, or townships cannot expect every displaced person to file an individual tax appeal. Just like they broadly gave us a tax break for a year, which is, I appreciate it and it's understandable and fair, they need to do this until we're done with this FEMA stuff, because we lost value. If I sell my house today, we got problems, and we need the tax break. Does everybody agree with me?
Yeah.
We're not going to file individually. We're going to file collectively. Now, I know there's a state law, okay? and you're gonna explain to me, and we're gonna put it on Facebook, who makes that law, because somebody made the law for this one,
I
right?
can't explain it to you. So
I know, but we'll figure it out. How about that, okay?
Okay, well,
You'll
I
help
can't
us figure
explain
it
it.
out.
I can't explain it. so I'm not
But
gonna do
Tom's River and state law together did that. Did every other town get that tax break?
Yes.
No, okay. Well, they should, okay? And we'll talk to those towns, and if you want it, put it on Facebook, and we'll get the mayors from there. You know, most of those mayors got flooded too. Okay, I hear Acropolis is living on his boat. Okay? Okay, he went out and spoke on 101.5 about our issues. He's on our side. He is Stop FEMA. He doesn't know it yet. He is Stop FEMA. Do you hear people walking? Do you hear people walking away from their houses because they can't afford it? Not because of Sandy.
Well,
Well,
I don't
Sandy.
have to go too far. I can look on my own in my own neighborhood and see it. So yes. And it's yeah. Apparently it's April 1st, not
Okay, it's April 1st. The tax appeal is April 1st.
Has to be in by
April
Yes.
1st.
Yeah.
We're gonna work on that. We'll work on that. We're gonna work on it on Facebook. If you wanna hear what's going on, we're gonna work on it through Facebook, okay? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, next question.
How many people are walking away from their homes?
I don't have an answer to how many people are walking away from their homes, but I think if you look at the number for sale signs and you just look at some of the evidence, you'll see quite a few are. I don't have a number.
Disgraceful.
Anybody's buying.
What's gonna happen to apartment buildings, commercial properties, condo complexes? They can't raise. How is it gonna affect them?
Well, I don't know that they can't raise, but you know, if they have, basically the requirement is if you're a residential property and you pay for flood, and you
A
have flood
50-unit
insurance.
condo complex in
Yes,
Hoboken?
they can elevate or they can.
A townhouse in Hoboken, that's a row of townhouses, and one guy's gonna raise, the other guy's not gonna
But
raise?
basically
What
what
happens
would-
in that situation?
What
What
they
happens in
abandon-
Hoboken?
You want an answer?
Yeah.
The answer is you probably have to abandon the first floor level of those apartments and build up from there. So they're not occupied.
Yeah.
Or you put in flood mitigation.
What
gates.
are they gonna do in Hoboken? What are they gonna do in New York City? New York City's an island. What are they doing in Hoboken and Jersey City? All right? It's not just us, we're not alone.
Just knock out.
Yes?
I had a tax assessor come to my home a couple of weeks ago, and he assessed my property and told me my taxes were going to go down until the home was finished, and then they'll reassess the home. I did not apply for nothing.
What
He
town?
just knocked on my door. I live right on Bay Street Drive in Silverton.
Do you have any document to verify that?
No, he just knocked on my
Do
door.
me a favor, get a document and please get it to us.
We did have assessors, people going around looking at damaged homes.
Yes.
And so that they came to my house as well. So
Right.
that's
And he
essentially
said
how it
that-
happened, right?
He said they're reassessing them as of April 1st. They will go down, and then once you get the home fixed, then they will reevaluate.
Did you apply for a building permit?
I'm sorry?
Did you have any building permits or any work done? 'Cause
I
think
haven't
that's
had
what triggers
anything
it.
done.
Okay,
I don't know what to do with the home.
yeah, all right.
Now, it's 4 o'clock and I don't want to go over. Mr. Wittman, council, everybody, do you mind having a few more questions?
Not at all.
Answer a few. Do you mind after the meeting sitting and for 20 minutes, is that okay?
Yeah.
Please, let's act nice. They're here to help. They've been flooded. They're here to get us answers. They didn't cause these problems. They're actually trying to rectify these problems, in my opinion. And I appreciate them for coming here. We're going to have a few more questions. There was a young lady here who had I promised you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and Tom River jumped on this right away.
Where are you from?
From Tom River.
Okay.
Why they went and based this substantially damaged, over 50% thing on the assessed value of the house. I know that was an easier way to do it, because that was all on the books, but that really has hurt a lot of people. Because
Well,
it's
you
very
know-
easy to get over 50% by using the assessed value. That's what
I can answer that pretty
Because
quickly.
FEMA had several different ways, is my understanding, to determine that.
Okay, well, the answer is, it's really hard to pass the red face test, as I would say. If we have people that we know the assessed value was 100% of the valuation. In fact, prior to Sandy, we had a lot of folks that thought their house was assessed more than what it was worth. And so to be honest with you, if we're really honest about it, everyone thought that their house was assessed too much. In fact, in my case, I appealed the taxes and I got a lower rate for 2012 as a result of that. And so I think now you can't have it both ways. You can't say before October 29, my house was really not worth $150,000, $200,000, whatever it is. And now after the storm, I really didn't mean that. It should have been $50,000 more. So that's why they did that, because we felt it was the fairest way to go. You can make a case that maybe it was worth $20,000 or $30,000 more, but no, it's pretty much, we have pretty well documented evidence that whatever your assessed value was, unless you were an anomaly, you were close to 100%. That's right. That's right. That's what you have to do.
The gentleman here is one of the first few that came. I believe you asked me a question about if you have to raise your home, they won't give you permits. You have to raise in 4 years, something like that.
Something
about
an affidavit you'd
Tell us.
Okay. What it is the
who's requiring this?
Okay. First of all, FEMA has a requirement, and Bob is a floodplain manager. If you have more than 50% damage under FEMA regulations, in order for us to keep the flood insurance rates that we have, which I know no one's happy about, but those are the rates. If we do not comply with FEMA's requirements, then the whole entire town gets basically kicked out of the flood insurance rate program, and everyone would pay higher flood insurance rates. And for mortgages. And they wouldn't be able to get a mortgage in the town. So in order to do that, they require that if you have more than 50% damage, we'll make it simple. House is assessed at $100,000, you have $50,000 or more in damage, you're substantially damaged. Now, the problem with that is FEMA said to us, you have 4 years to raise your homes, and if you don't raise it in 4 years, then basically there's an issue. The reason why we ask folks to sign an affidavit is, you come from Sussex County, and you go to buy a home, and it's substantially damaged, and they paid the house is repaired, and they might not got permits, and maybe the person didn't have a lawyer or whatever, and now there's no record that house was flooded, and there's no record that house no longer can qualify for flood insurance. Because the other proviso is, if you have more than 50% damage and FEMA paid out a claim on the flood insurance rate program, then you're no longer qualified for flood insurance unless you raise your house. So now that poor person from Sussex County comes down here, buys your house, and finds out that they can't get flood insurance unless they raise it. So to protect future buyers and sellers and avoid all these lawsuits, we put in a proviso that you have to sign an affidavit to say you understand by getting a permit that if you're substantially damaged, that within 4 years, you're going to have to raise your home.
What happens in 4 years if I don't raise my home?
Well, that's Bob. I'll let Bob answer.
We did talk to FEMA about this because we spoke to FEMA about this because the last thing that the township wants to be is be the house police. The first thing what we're going to do, we believe, is after you sign this, in about 2 years, you'll get a reminder letter. After 4 years, technically you are in violation of the flood damage ordinance, which FEMA basically wrote and forces us to adopt. There may be a fine. We don't know yet. Most importantly, though, what happens is we have to protect the town and all the people that did comply in their mortgages. We have to make sure that FEMA doesn't take the township out of the flood program, because everybody, if they took us out and everybody's flood insurance was voided, everybody's mortgage company would be sending them letters saying
what happens if?
But if you let me finish for 1 second. So what we have to do is we work something out with FEMA. If one person, if everybody on the block did and one person didn't, the township will gather up all those properties, and what FEMA's explained is we will apply to FEMA to remove those individual properties out of the flood program.
What if there's an overwhelming amount of people? If the township, it's basically FEMA certifying the town that we can get flood insurance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What if Tom's River or any other town up and down the coast said, we don't want you?
Well, here's the problem. In the free market, any company could go write flood insurance right now. Pretty much it's Lloyd's of London and Chubb, and we all know what that might cost. The problem is the private sector doesn't want to do it. The federal government had to create the flood program to allow people to get mortgages. So unfortunately...
No, my question to you is, we have a mortgage. Whether we want to pay flood insurance or not, if we pay our mortgage today, okay, part of our mortgage, and most of the people, they pay their flood insurance included with that. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm just going to pay my mortgage company individually, my homeowner's insurance individually, and I'm not going to pay my flood insurance. What's going to happen then?
What happens is, and I'm not a lawyer, but I believe if you read your mortgage, you're obligated to maintain...
Wait. Obligated meaning the bank is gonna charge me for it and get me flood insurance. Is that what you mean?
The bank will buy it.
The bank, wait, the bank's gonna buy the flood insurance. Okay, and then if you don't pay that, what's gonna end up happening? The bank is gonna foreclose on you. Okay, so my question back to you is, if Tom's River, as a town, because there are towns out there in the United States that said screw FEMA, they're smaller towns.
Right.
What if Tom's River or any other town said, we're not doing what you're telling us? What's gonna happen then? Is the bank gonna come and take 15,000 homes in Tom's River?
Well, you're grinding to a halt because you're not gonna have any sales of property because anyone buying it.
They're not selling anyway.
Well,
They're not selling anyway.
but you're not gonna be able to have homes bought and sold because if you don't have insurance, the bank is gonna give you a mortgage. Most people can't pay cash for a house. They're not gonna be able to have the transaction go through.
What about the people that own a second home? They're excluded.
Yeah, that's a great question. What grants help grandfathering anything? That's a great question, and I'm sorry I'm being selfish for the people that are down here, and a vast majority of people are second homeowners. What kind of help, what if they're 51% damage? What kind of grants is available
They
for
have
them?
flood insurance. I believe they can qualify.
We
for
don't,
the
I don't
ICC.
have flood insurance.
If you have flood insurance, you can qualify.
insurance, and if your second home, you say goodbye to you.
No, that's not true.
Wait,
That's not true.
hold on. Hold on. We're gonna try, how about this? Is it okay if she, is your
Do you have
home in
flood
Tom's
insurance?
River?
Right here in Silver.
Do you have
Okay.
flood insurance?
Right in there, it's a FEMA rule, if it's a second home, you
Your
don't
second
get
home,
the value.
I went to FEMA to apply, if it's your second home.
Hold on.
Could I just finish?
Yes.
They don't help you, number one. Number two, whatever money you do get back, there's a depreciation. When you finish your repairs, you get that back once an inspector comes. Unless it's your second home. You don't get your depreciation.
Yeah,
How fair is this?
Personally, I find that
have my
unfair.
insurance.
Personally, I find that unfair. I totally agree. Hold on. I want.
Want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. Let him answer that. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's not true. Here for 30 years. I'm coming to Thompson for 30 years. We built 12 years ago. I do everything I'm supposed to. I have my homeowners, my flood insurance, and for FEMA to tell me, just second home, we don't help you. And now my checks are starting to come in. We've gotten about $90,000 out of about $200,000 in damage. And the $13,000 they took up for depreciation. Unless I live here 80% of the time, I don't get that $13,000 back. So FEMA screwed me twice.
My understanding of the program is if you had the maximum amount of coverage, then they don't take the depreciation out from that. Because I had the same thing and they
Wait. Is there somebody from Tom's River Township that is an ICC, we'll call him specialist? Bob is. So Bob, tell us.
I can tell you a couple things. First off, in my own house, primary house, I did get the depreciation. I have been told multiple times by FEMA that even on secondary homes, you do qualify for the ICC. And what I would do is I would look at your bill. When you look at the breakdown, you probably paid between $50 and $80 for ICC. So, and the only thing I can't speak to. ICC is to bring increased cost of compliance, whether it's flood vents or air conditioner or whatever, generally. The only thing I can answer is, I've never heard of this scenario where if it's your secondary home, whether you get the recoverable depreciation part or not.
You don't get it back.
Okay.
It says it right in the book. You have to meet 3 qualifications, and one of them says you live in the home.
But are you sure that it has to do with the fact that it's a secondary home, or did you pay for replacement cost value with your policy? Normally, it's a cheaper rate if you just.
No, I have $250,000, which is the maximum.
Right.
Right.
I have the same.
And then there are 3 things you have to qualify.
Wait.
And one of them is that you have to live in the house 80% of the time.
Hold on.
Or you don't get it back.
Hold on, this is a detailed question, and I think there's a lot of second homeowners. I forget. Bob's gonna be outside, and he's gonna answer those second homeowner questions. He'll give you 15, 20 minutes, and please, we're gonna be respectful and everything to Bob. I do wanna give 2 people here some questions, or else we're never gonna leave. Mr. Falconer.
First of all, I think we should let people know about the DEP hearing. The purpose of the DEP hearing was to adopt the FEMA maps after the governor's executive order expires. they had no expert witnesses to back up the maps. They have made no studies of the maps to validate them. At the public hearing that we were at, all the experts who came and gave testimony said there was no scientific basis for the maps. And everybody in the room admitted that there are no 3-foot waves in Barnegat Bay. Now I have a question for the engineer. We do have some 3-story houses, which are at the maximum height allowed by ordinance in our different towns in Ocean County. Now, if you raise the maps above, let's say 35 feet top, at what point do special wind regulations come in that require you to rebuild the roof and put special windows at the top?
But no, I can tell you, what Tom Gerber has done, he looked at it and he spoke to the DCA. So we've changed the ordinance. There's a new ordinance that will be adopted Tuesday night for folks that have homes that are close to the maximum. So essentially, if you're in a flood zone and you have a level 7 and you have to go up 5 feet, okay, and your house is 35 feet, we'll give you the other 5 feet.
Okay, I do.
You get the other 5 feet.
That's good.
Well, I didn't say there's not going to be, again, we're not going to let you build a house and it's unsafe. So if you got to go up 5 feet and there was a requirement that you put additional strapping on the house, then yes. You're not going to get me to say, you can build the house up 5 feet and not do any analysis. So if you raise your house up and you spend $100,000 or $50,000 to do that, we want to make sure that your architect or engineer that's helping you do that is going to design it properly. So yeah, there might be strapping and you might have to do that, but that's part of the cost of doing it.
We're only going to have a couple questions or else we're never going to leave. They are going to be available for 20 minutes. I do have a couple more people that we're going to answer questions that I said here. What about people who have small houses close? You raise them, the stairs come out too far into the street. What are we doing with that? Are we going to have, there's 20 questions. What if a pool's too close when you raise your house? What if the walkway's too close when you raise your house? Are we going to have common sense rules, not just in Tom's River, but everywhere? We don't want to have to go. That first guy who raised his house, who was too high, he had to go for a variance. We don't need another headache. We need common sense rules.
Well, we do have common sense rules. So if you were to raise your house up and you had to go up 5 more feet, you can put your stairs out into in the setbacks. So as long as it's not going into the road, there's a way to orient the stairs and that. So that if you had to go out 5 feet, the current regulations, as long as you don't want to build a covered porch, you can go up to 1,000 square feet. You can have the steps come out and into the setback. It's not an issue.
Right here.
Yeah. This is more towards you. So ICC.
Louder.
Regarding ICC. So my understanding is to get ICC, you have to be 50% substantial damage, right? So my property came in at 45%. I spoke with FEMA. They said that dollar value means nothing. They said it's up to the township to determine whether it's 50%. There is no dollar value associated with that.
That's kind of a misnomer. How do we have to assess when I sign a letter saying you are substantially damaged, it has to be based on their formula, which is pre-storm fair market value, which in the case of Tom's River, since we just went through a reval, it's essentially the same number. And so if that number is your pre-storm assessed value of the structure is 100. If you have more than $50,000 in damage, now you can give that to us via your proof of loss from your insurance company or 2 estimates. If neither of those happen or work, FEMA is going to be sending inspectors out. We're contracting with them to go to all the other houses, but they're still going to use, FEMA uses our assessed value number. So it is based on a number. It's not just some guy walking out.
No, they said 50% is valid, but they said it's not a dollar figure. It's a damaged 50%. My wife was on the phone. We spent an hour with the guy, and he insisted, do not go by the insurance company estimate. It's up to the town to determine whether you're 50% or not.
I can explain it. Bob is the floodplain manager for Tom's River. That's his job. he writes all the letters. So if you have, the way it works in Tom's River and the way we're following the FEMA regulations is 50%. If they told us 45, we'd follow 45. But they told us 50%. So if you have 50,000 damage, you have a $100,000 house, you qualify for ICC. So I don't know how,
Why don't we do this? Why don't the young lady first, right here? Where are you from? Staten Island or Brooklyn?
Me?
Yeah.
Staten Island.
You got some spice in there. I like that.
Good.
I like that. You got some
Originally
fire.
from Brooklyn, that's why.
I know. You got some spice. I like it. Her, him.
I have a
get the
question
first.
on that.
Hold on. You spoke a lot today.
No, but I do have.
This gentleman right here with the glasses on.
With a 4-year window, when does that clock start ticking on that? And with 10,000 houses that need to be raised, is that really logical that we're all going to be able to raise our houses
I
in
believe
4
it's the
years?
date of the building permit, when you issued a permit. So, once you decide to do what you're gonna do, you come down to the township, or there's a lot of stuff you can email. You're gonna, before you get your building permit, you go to the law office, you fill out that affidavit, you file it with the clerk. Once that's stamped, you take it to the building department, and that's what tells the building department, okay, we can review this on the old code, not make them raise. Then you have the 4 years. I can only imagine if we find out that.
So wait till the fourth year before you do it.
If there's still a shortage of house raisers, I'm sure we're going to be applying for an extension.
Good. So they can apply for an extension.
If there's extenuating circumstances, I mean, how many house raisers are there?
Yeah, there's only about a half. To answer your question, do we think it's realistic? I personally don't think it's realistic to do that. You're going to raise 10,000 houses in 4 years. No, I don't. In Tom's River, no, and that's Tom's River only. Rick has the same amount. So you're talking maybe 20,000 houses. So physically, the construction industry cannot support that amount of work in 4 years, in my opinion. Maybe unless you get now in Louisiana, we met with folks from Louisiana after Katrina, and they're still raising houses now, 7 years later.
Wow.
And in fact, the flood maps for Katrina in Louisiana aren't finalized
Right.
7 years later.
Yeah, do you believe that? Right, but they want
If the flood maps are not final, 7 years later, guys, ladies, 7 years later, they are not finalized. Is it correct if the maps, they're called firm maps, right? They're finalized. If the firm maps are not finalized, the insurance cannot take into effect. Is that correct?
Can I speak to something?
Absolutely.
This is a little bit of a double-edged sword. There's some people that want to get started, and when that map's going to come out in the next couple months, and they're going to see it's lower.
Is it May, what's the May-August thing?
Well, we're told they're going to issue a working map, and then there's going to be a draft map. It's all over. But somewhere in the future, hopefully sooner than later, we're going to see their product, and hopefully it's going to be lower. Here's where the problem's going to be. As of today, the governor...
This is today.
Yeah, that's today. The state has adopted those maps. So even though we'll have the map, we won't be able to use the map. So that's the problem. That's why our support letter, which I have here, is going to be on our website.
Right.
We want that. We don't want to use the ABFEs. We want the homeowner to be able to make his decision. Now, when the firm maps are adopted, see, they only can base your insurance on an adopted firm map, not an ABFE map. So you can see the quandary here. When it gets adopted, your rates go up, but until it's adopted, you can't use the lower map.
So what can Tom's River, the county, the state do to hold off ever getting firm maps like Louisiana?
You know, that's not a practical. That's not a practical.
I'll wait 7 years.
I'll wait.
I'll wait 7 years. It's $100,000. No, he's next. This gentleman's next.
It's not a practical solution because even if we not do that, you're still going to be you're not going to be able to rebuild your house. And if you have a storm in between, that 7, even if, let's say we go out to 7 years and you have another storm and you had more than 50% damage, guess what? You're not going to get paid by insurance for any future damage. So if you don't elevate your home, so that's how they get you. So if you don't elevate your home and you have another storm and you had 50% or more damage, you can't collect any more money on flood insurance, even if your bank requires you to pay for it.
What about, I have a question for this gentleman. It's primarily for, please.
My wife and I are 83 years old. We've been here, living here almost 30 years. We live on the bay. If we have to lift our house, how does a handicapped wife get into this?
There you go. You know what? I understand his concern. I'm helping somebody rebuild their house that's a neighbor of ours, and literally the house on the bay is 11 feet high. So I said to them more than once, "Are you sure you want to go through with this? They're going to demolish their house, and the first floor is higher than where I could reach up." And I said, "You're going to have 17 to 18 steps. Is that really what you want?" And in some cases, that's what the problem is. I mean, the numbers are so great that, you know, this street happens to be at 3 feet elevation. So to get to 11, you have to have 8 feet. They need roughly 16 to 18 steps. I haven't really worked out the math, but it's in that range. So the only other feasible way to do that if you're handicapped is to put in an elevator, which even adds more to the cost. But you're asking how to do it.
Hold on. We've run over, okay? I'd love to be here, but people have to go. These gentlemen were more than kind enough to be here. Would you be willing to talk to a few folks for a few minutes? Okay, young lady in the blue. He's got a vote.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Wittman. Thank you, Scott. One quick question. You had mentioned something earlier about the first floor on a commercial building going out and then building above. Would it be possible in the town, rather than to lift our homes, to take our bottom floors and make them, you know, like a basement or whatever, that would be covered by FEMA? And wouldn't it be a lot cheaper for the rest of us to add another floor on the second floor than it would be to lift the home? And if you could do that, the hazard mitigation,
Well, you know, that's actually a very good idea. The problem is that it only works in an A zone, not in a B zone. If you're in an A zone, what you could do is you still have to lift the house up, where you have to build it. You have to build an interior wall alongside your existing wall and then shift the house over. But yeah, that's actually feasible. But the problem is it only works for an A zone. In a V zone, you know, that's why we really need to get the V zones out of the most of Tom's River. The V zones are extensive, and they really need to be shrunk down to a small, discrete area that really makes sense. They don't make sense. It would work.
Hold on, I think there's another issue too. If you put another floor on your house, you better make sure, and I'm sure the engineering folks will tell you, that your foundation can actually hold an additional floor, and that is an issue, right?
It would have to be designed that way, but you're asked if it's feasible. Well, if it's A zone, you could do it. You'd have to have an engineer and architect design the foundation, but yes, it would be done.
Okay, I appreciate everybody for being here. We're gonna have more meetings, number one. And number two is, I wanna close, we have some closing information business. I wanna thank Council President George Wittman. He called me and he said, can you meet with you? And I said, please, if you can come to my home so we could talk. I want to meet you man to man and explain to you, we're not here to scream at you. And he came and he spoke to me like a man, and I appreciate that. I appreciate Mr. Councilman Stavastakis and Councilman Hill and Engineer
Councilman Hill, he wrote that wonderful article.
Thank you, everybody.
I have a question.
Hold on. Whoa.